listening to The Greg Kelly Show.
All right, and we're back with a quick thought about the word forgiveness. It seems to be a word you don't hear about very often, right? Forgiveness. I hear a lot of unforgivable. Oh, what he did is unforgivable. That's unforgivable. But I never hear about forgiveness. I never hear the phrase cutting someone some slack. Hey, cut me some slack. Let's cut him some slack on this one. I never hear that anymore. I never hear anybody complain about somebody for being uptight. That guy's way too uptight, because everybody's uptight these days. Nobody ever refers to a chip on the shoulder. That person has a real chip on the shoulder. You know why? Because everybody just about has a great big chip on their shoulder looking for a fight. I also never hear the word gossip in a pejorative way. You know, that person's a real gossip. We become a nation of gossips. And part of it, quite frankly, I think is on display with this whole Elon Musk Trump feud thing, which I think is contrived and kind of fake, and but righteously so. Okay, I think it's actually for a good cause. I'd like to bring in, though, a real expert, one of our favorites from the Government Accountability Institute. He also has that great drill down podcast. Eric Eggers, welcome back. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing great, Greg. I thought you were going to say, let me bring in somebody who's never shown anyone any grace or forgiveness, Eric Eggers. But no, it's a really interesting time. The news just kind of took over everything yesterday, huh?
Well, yes, but I think it was by design. My theory is that they're all playing a part here. President Trump has consistently acknowledged that Elon Musk was paying a very big price for his association with him. And I just believe that, hey, look, when you leave, I'm going to trash you. He has said things like, or you can trash me and I'll trash you back and everything will be good with your lefty customers. He has actually said out loud, look, I will endorse you or I will not endorse you, whatever helps, whatever helps. He said that before to people. I'm trying to find specific examples. Anyway, what do you think of the whole thing?
No, I actually think that's a brilliant analysis, because you don't invest the amount of effort that Elon Musk did to get Donald Trump elected. And I think not just get him elected, but to try to help him govern in a real way. I think his concern about the future of the federal debt is real and authentic. And I think criticisms, quite honestly, of the big, beautiful bill are also legitimate. I mean, while it can be true that there's some things about the green energy scam that are being clawed back, and it's, you know, the biggest reduction in spending, it's also going to increase deficits and debt, which payments are over $1 trillion a year in interest, by the way, for the next 5 years. And that's not something that I think most Americans thought they were getting when they voted for Donald Trump. So I think there's probably a very real disagreement. Also, the elimination of the electric vehicle tax is probably a real thing. But I love your insight. I had not considered it, and it makes, quite frankly, a lot of sense. And I do think the way it's been so public, it seems like there's clearly more going on than meets the eye, and I like that theory as much as anything else.
Let me play some sound for you. This is Elon Musk at the first rally in Butler, Pennsylvania, after the assassination attempt. It's going to go on for a bit, but here's this. Actually, all the other stuff is tactical. Here's why I really think this is not a genuine feud. It's for tactical reasons, not strategic. Well, strategic too, but just listen to this if you don't mind.
American astronauts into space. Come here. Take over, Elon. Yes, take over.
Hi, everyone. As you can see, I'm not just MAGA, I'm dark MAGA. Well, first of all, I want to say what an honor it is to be here. And, you know, the true test of someone's character is how they behave under fire. And we had one president who couldn't climb a flight of stairs, and another who was fist pumping after getting shot.
All right, let me leave it at that. And then he goes on to say, look, everything's on the line here. The First Amendment, the Second Amendment. And he's talking broadly. He doesn't talk nitnoids about a reconciliation bill or anything like that, or EV mandates. He's talking about, you know, all the things that we know are very, very important, existentially so. This guy didn't lose sight of that overnight. That's the last thing I'll say on it. Thoughts?
No, I think you're absolutely right. And I think that there are real challenges that the Trump administration is facing. I've spoken to people within the administration. I know you have too. And they're very honest about how much, you know, it's a big ship to turn around. And, people within the Department of Justice, you've seen the mass exodus of lawyers there, and you hear some reports about some infighting and how come people aren't getting as much done as they'd like to get done. I think that there are a lot of obstacles, and Elon Musk is, private business. Both Elon Musk and Donald Trump are used to running their own businesses, right? They're used to being in total control, which is why Donald Trump loves executive orders as much as he does. I hope you're right. I think it makes a lot of sense. I do think whatever the issues are, I mean, for Elon Musk to put out the thing about the Epstein list, I thought was a little too on the nose. So I think that was probably the best evidence we have that, okay, this is for show as much as anything else. I think you're absolutely right. And I've even heard predictions that Elon Musk will return to the White House when this bill is signed. So it's in the news. Now they seem to be kind of feuding, and maybe there'll be some stuff, some sort of a reconciliation in a public way in the not too distant future.
And look, President Trump can give as good as he got or whatever. I mean, he was the one. Remember, he tweeted, "Hey, was Ted Cruz's dad involved in the JFK shooting?" Just asking questions. So, look, maybe you can take us through this big, beautiful bill. Quite frankly, I'm sick of hearing about it, but I don't know budget stuff all that well. I don't want to know it all that well. It goes over my head. Reconciliate. I really don't care for this crap. But, however, there are some red lines that I have. And my understanding right now is this is a good thing. And it's going to pass overall, especially for the money for ICE and immigration. That we needed money for that. Just take us through it, if you don't mind. And where are you and where are we? Is this thing going to pass?
Yeah, I think it will pass, and I think it's going to be, the best thing everybody hates, but they're also glad it got done. We actually had Chip Roy, the representative from Texas, on our podcast this week, and he did a very good job and a granular job of walking us through the parts of it that he likes, the parts of it he had to hold his nose and vote in spite of. For the first 5 years, it does increase spending. And, but the reality is that Congress is actually addicted to spending. Even Chip Roy, is part of his getting a yes. I think I saw it reported he got like $12 billion in border security, which Governor Abbott had been asking for. So, I mean, everybody needs something, and that stuff costs money. And so, everybody's going to get something that costs money, and that all kind of goes on the credit card. And you can't do that plus tax cuts without it increasing deficit. So that's where they are. But they do think that eliminating the green energy stuff is a really big deal. They do have, I think, some of the DOGE stuff. What he told us is there's $150 billion that's sort of in carve outs, and then there's another 9.2 in rescissions, 9.2 billion that they believe Donald Trump will be able to enact on his own. So they are making some moves to memorialize the DOGE cuts. And I think it is going to pass. It's an increase in spending, but it's also an elimination of a lot of other bad stuff. And they seem to sort of think that on the whole, it's doing well, and they expect the Senate to make it much better. I know that people like Ron Johnson has said he's not going to vote for this thing. Rand Paul has said he's not going to vote for it in its current form, and they believe they have at least 4 who are willing to stand up and have, quite honestly, the political runway until they have to run for re-election. That they're going to force. They're going to pose a significant problem, enough that they're going to get some more stuff to be wins for them in the Senate, as Chip Roy did in the House.
Well, all right. Well, let's go through it. Who else? There's Ron Johnson, Rand Paul. Who else would likely, or is the most likely to say no? Who else?
Ooh, that's a good question. What do you think? I have to start doing some math on this, but I've heard Ron Johnson say he thinks they have 4. And so, you got him, you got Rand Paul.
I've heard people say that before, though. They're always saying that, and they never really do. When they say that, they usually don't. And if it's 4, you're counting on 1 or 2 can be picked off. So, I
think we agree. I think we agree that it's going to pass. It's just about how much more do they get done. And by the way, I think the reason why they will see more get done is because even the people in the House that voted for it said, we're going to vote for this under the condition, quite honestly, the expectation that we think that the Senate will drag it further to the right. So I think that you'll see more spending cuts, some additional language that they kind of caters more to the Republican base. Because to be honest, you can't. It's funny that we do the Epstein files thing because of Elon Musk's tweet, but I think that's still a not great look for the Department of Justice and Pam Bondi and Kash Patel and those guys, that you kind of talk about releasing it on day one, and now here we are, it's in June, and we sort of don't know anything else about it. And I think you can't go through as much as they went through with the Doge and the chainsaw and all the USAID stuff, and oh my gosh, I can't believe we're funding this, and then not come back with a pretty significant number, which everyone acknowledges there is that much waste, fraud, and abuse in the federal spending. So I do think you'll see more happen. But look, this is just how the process works, and it's messy, it's gross. There's a reason why you don't like it. It's quite frankly an unlikable thing, but it is unfortunately just the reality.
Yeah, I know some of these guys. It's very easy to show up on Fox News and shoot your mouth off about the deep state, and you get there and oops. Wow, it's a lot harder than I thought, and there's that.
Consider this, Greg. I mean, look at the provision in there about preventing states from regulating AI for the next decade. That didn't get in there on accident, and it didn't get in there on accident at the same time that Palantir and Peter Thiel and those guys are winning some significant contracts with the federal government. Elon Musk's departure, by the way, also occurs at a very interesting time as Palantir is making inroads in the White House. So I do think the forces are at work. Donald Trump's a big negotiator. He's very good at it, but he's talking to everybody. And so, he gives some and gets some. And I think it's going to be, the deep state is there for a reason. And it's really hard to get some of the stuff done that they've get done. To be honest, I think it's what makes what they have done so far as remarkable as it is, because when you consider just how strong the headwinds have been for what they've been fighting.
Hey, one other thing. Where do you go? Where do you, Eric Akers, go to look at the big beautiful bill? I've seen there are various sub websites and things like that, and a lot of us rely on aggregators. But what do you recommend? Where do people go to really get a handle on the granular stuff?
So I think, talking to, looking at the reporting that people who have been critical of it.
See, I can't, I know, but I feel like I'm being spun. I want to see, is there access to the draft bill?
On House.gov, we've seen some drafts of it, and that's where you see some of these provisions. You look at the different committees, because that's actually, the most important question I think we asked Chip Roy was, let's take this AI provision specifically, right? Where does this provision come from? This seems like a specific carve-out for a very important industry. Who put it in there? Which staffer, which lobbyist, how does it get there? And even Chip Roy was like, so AI, which committee is that going to be on? But, this thing is this big conglomeration of all these different committees, and so everybody has a hand in it. And so it just speaks to what you're speaking to is, here's why Washington is as broken as it is, because you're like, hey, I want to see, this thing's going to cost trillions of dollars, and I want to know what's in it, how it's in it. I want to see the different forms of it, and it's incredibly hard to get it. There is a total lack of transparency when it comes to these things. It's very challenging. So actually, I thought the conversation we had with Chip Roy, was why I want to talk to as many members of Congress and as many people as involved in the process as we can, because I think that's actually the best source of information. Otherwise, I do think you're right. Otherwise you probably are getting spun, and it's where screenshots of the actual bill and the legislation are so important, or accessing the language specifically. But even that, Greg, you're a lawyer. Reading these bills is incredibly complicated.
Well, I'm not a lawyer.
You're not a lawyer?
No, you thought I was a lawyer? I'm impressed.
Because I think, law enforcement, lawyer.
No. But the laws are written in such a way, and that I think deliberately arcane to keep people in the dark and to keep lawyers in business. I actually asked that specific question because there was a pretty simple, straightforward law, I thought, and then looking at it, how art thou to hereas with for, and what the hell does this really say? It's something else. Well, Eric, you're amazing. If we want to hear that interview with Chip Roy, where do we go?
Yeah, I would go to thedrilldown.com. That's where our podcast is. Greg, I'd also point out a lot of what has informed my thinking about the Department of Justice. We also had Harmeet Dillon on. She's the the head of the Civil Rights Division. And so, we're trying to hear directly from the people involved in this process. It's nasty. It's gross. It's really messy, the fights that they're in. But I think they're fights worth having. They're righteous fights. And so, our interview with Harmeet Dillon, our interview with Chip Roy, we're trying to talk about the most important things that are impacting the lives of everyday Americans. And you can find those conversations at thedrilldown.com.
Excellent. Hey, real quick, what is your bottom line at this point on Epstein? What what the hell was that all about? Why aren't we getting the papers? And forget the papers for a second. What was he really up to?
Oh, I think it was intelligence gathering operation for foreign countries. I think that seems pretty clear.
Couldn't it be American? The American?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, all of the above, right? Like, I think you're trying to gather compromising information about the most important people in the world, and he's probably paid by a number of entities who are, glad to have that level of access to information, and therefore glad to have that level of kind of leverage over people who help make the world run.
Yeah, that's my strong sense, and what's been told to me. And part of why they couldn't put the papers out, America wants leverage over some of these people. And we have it, and we want to keep it. And you tell the whole story, we lose it. But I think we'll know for sure one day. Thank you, Eric Eggers.